Hi, I'm Allison Nau, and I'm here to talk to you today about Cox Automotive's big data journey. A bit about me. I'm the founder and managing director of Cox Automotive Data Solutions, which was a new division set up within Cox Automotive a couple of years ago. I come from more than a decade of experience in big data and analytics. My first job out of graduate school was a statistical modeler, which is what they called us before we were called data scientists, which I think is brilliant rebranding because it sounds like a much sexier job title. And I'm really passionate about using data to drive decision making. And so I'm going to talk to you about the journey that we've gone on at Cox Automotive over the last couple of years. A bit about Cox Automotive, though. I think it's important to understand who we are as a business and how our data was collected as a byproduct of the various businesses that we have. It may be similar to some of your own businesses. Think about used cars. Our business isn't used cars. We're one of the global leading providers of services for the used car industry. And it starts with stock. And what we mean by stock is when a company car driver will return a car at the end of its lease back to the leasing company, we come into the picture. We will inspect that vehicle, we'll collect it, we'll transport it, and we'll recondition it in preparation for sale through our wholesale auction channels, both online and physical auctions. That's where car dealers buy a lot of their used car stock. And this year, through our online and our physical auction channels, we'll sell just under 500,000 vehicles. Once a car dealer has purchased a vehicle, they then need to advertise that. And we provide digital marketing services under our motors.co.uk brand, which is the second largest online classified site in the UK, and under our Modix brand, which provides a used vehicle search functionality for more than a dozen manufacturers. So if you go to volkswagen.co.uk and search for a used VW, that's actually a fully white labeled Modix website. As a consumer, you'd have no idea about that. Obviously, once that vehicle is advertised, consumers may indicate that they're interested in the vehicle, and we provide digital solutions to help a dealer manage their back office, manage those leads coming into the dealership, help that customer purchase that vehicle, and then we provide services to help manage the after-sales relationship with that customer. Things like managing the workflow within a dealer's workshop and things like online service bookings. So these are the businesses that we have across Cox Automotive. And in 2015, our business looked a bit like this. Sort of traditional organization for a business. You know, standard functions, IT, marketing, etc. But we had a change in leadership in the board. There were some new board members which joined, and they had a different vision for the future. And they had a view that they wanted to become a data-driven business. They recognized that across all of those different businesses that we had, we were collecting a wealth of information. And they wanted to use that data to drive product development, to drive operational efficiency throughout the business. So when I joined the business in September of 2015, I was brought in to lead this data-driven transformation, and I was given three things. I was given the complete and utter backing of the board, which has been absolutely critical for the success we've been able to achieve to date. I was given a budget. I think if you speak to any of the vendors outside today, you know that it requires a little bit of investment, not necessarily lots of investment, but at least a little bit of investment in order to start to bring data together and generate value from it. And I had a blank sheet of paper. And when I say a blank sheet of paper, I mean a blank sheet of paper. Our data, for the most part, was held in legacy green screen mainframe systems. We missed the memo in the 90s, 2000s that an enterprise data warehouse was a good thing. We didn't have Oracle, we didn't have Teradata. We had systems that if you tried to query the data, you would take down the entire operational system for the business. So you'd have to go through careful negotiations with the DBAs to run a particular size job at 1 a.m. on a Saturday morning, to make sure that you wouldn't disrupt the business. We had some very, very passionate hobbyists when it comes to data expertise. We had a couple of guys siloed in the business, a couple in Bristol, a couple in Leeds, a guy in Manchester that were self-taught. They were Excel gurus, and they were producing phenomenal analysis with very limited tools. But they were acting in a very responsive way. They were acting at the whims of the salespeople. I've got this very important meeting this afternoon. Can you give me this data? And that's what they would do. Very, very much order taking. And I'm seeing some smiles in the room. I guess this is perhaps a familiar experience. But we had that blank sheet of paper. So I think in some ways I was fortunate that I didn't have sort of teams that were operating in sort of the old world of data that we'd have to bring into the new world. We didn't really have anything. So as I started to look around the organization, I realized that there was this journey that we're going on. And we call this the insight journey. This was developed by Sean McGurr, who's our lead data scientist while he was working for a consultancy called Optimal BI. And it really speaks to how data is used for decision making. And it starts with instinct, which is your years of experience that you have. What type of coffee do you order in the morning? You probably don't look to see, how many calories are in it, what's the caffeine content of that particular type of coffee bean, etc. You know what type of coffee. For me, I like a decaf Americano because caffeine, makes me a bit shaky. And so instinct is all of those decisions that you make with your gut. You probably don't even realize that you're making. What tube of toothpaste do you pick up when you're at the supermarket? And that's not using your qualitative experience, but not using data in the way that we think about things today. One step beyond that is intuition. These are your reports and KPIs, your counts of things. In our business, we're very much focused on cars. We like to count cars. How many cars did we sell? How many cars did we list? What did they sell for? What were they listed at? How quickly did they sell, etc. Our operational teams love counts of stuff. And that's your standard reports and KPIs, the things that every business needs to know: how much they've sold, how much they've bought, how much things cost. And you need a little bit of data. This is the data that is oftentimes permeated throughout an organization in Excel. One step beyond that is intelligence. You're no longer just counting things or averaging things, but you're starting to look at patterns and trends. You're starting to tease out correlations. For us in the automotive industry, one of the things that we look at is what happens to the prices of cars when the plate changes in March and September of each year. And typically the price of vehicles declines a bit. It declines more in April than it does in October. And that's where you start to, as you look at those patterns and trends, you look at those correlations, you need a little bit more data. One step beyond it is prediction. So instead of just looking at the past, counting things, looking at patterns and trends, you're using that historical data to make forecasts for the future. What would happen if I did X? What would happen if I did Y? Obviously, the math gets more complicated. You need more data. One step beyond that is optimization. So given a particular objective and a set of constraints, what's the best decision that you can make? As many of you in the room are aware, the algorithms for this get a lot more complicated. In order to have reliable results, you need a lot more data. And as I was looking at this journey and reflecting on where we were operating right at the boundary of instinct and intuition, generally across the business. We had some parts of the business that had the reports that they need for counting things. There are some parts of the business that were struggling to get access to that. And the automotive industry, the used car industry in particular, is a fairly traditional business when it comes to how decisions get made. And so recognizing that we're going on a journey, I had to think about how we would get there. And what was our purpose? What was our reason for being? So we set our mission for data solutions, and our mission is threefold. The first is to help our clients in the automotive industry make smarter and more informed decisions at every stage of the used vehicle life cycle. The second is to provide actionable insight across every part of Cox Automotive in the UK to improve sales, customer service, and operational efficiency. And the third is to become the authoritative source of vehicle market insight, ultimately transforming the way the world interacts with cars. So this mission, this threefold mission, is our lifeblood. It guides everything that we do. Everyone in the team knows what this is. It's a bit cheesy, but we make people say it out loud during our monthly town halls. And for us, this really speaks to why we're doing what we do. The first is about developing new revenue streams for our business by developing new types of products for the automotive industry, helping them sell cars faster, helping them sell cars more profitably. The second is taking that same data and using it operationally within our own business. Really focused on where we can drive efficiency gains, where can we stop people copy-pasting things and have them focus actually on what their core job is. And the third speaks to the opportunity that we see as we've got one of the uniquely positioned in the UK with both a complete view of the wholesale market and the retail market to combine that information together and make that available to other industries such as finance, insurance, and government. So with that mission in mind, recognizing the journey that we were going on, we need to figure out what we needed to do to get there. And the core for this are the operational capabilities. And this, for me, is people. People are absolutely critical. Getting the right skilled resources, upskilling the people that we had. Bringing data together on the appropriate infrastructure with the appropriate level of governance. We've got different businesses, and sometimes, depending on customer contracts, information might not be permitted to be widely shared. across the group. So we need to make sure we've got the right controls in place to understand who's entitled to see what type of information. You need to have the right infrastructure to support bringing data in from lots of different data sources. And obviously the legal and compliance piece is critical, particularly when we think about GDPR. On top of those operational capabilities is communication and education. And that really speaks to the training that we need to do within our business, as well as for the automotive industry more generally. And finally, on top of that is that actionable insight, which is the business intelligence for internal use, products for automotive clients, and data solutions for other markets. Now, the important thing here is that this is not a linear process. I see a lot of organizations spend 2 or 3 or 5 years to build a data lake, where they're going to dump all the data in that they have across the group, and then once it's in there, they're going to figure out what to do with it. In my personal view, that's a mistake. Start with one data set and scale that out. What you need to bring in together 40, 50, 100 different data sets is very different than what you need to bring together 1 or 2. You start with building a small pyramid. You can't just jump to the actionable insights. You need to have the operational capabilities. People need to know what to do with it, and then you can scale that pyramid out. So what we did is we started by combining some of that fantastic talent, those 5 guys that I mentioned before, move them into the team to stop them from doing duplicate work. Created a new role for a business analyst. When I joined the business, I thought I would hire a data scientist. And I see a lot of businesses, when they move into the data space, think, I'm going to hire a data scientist. Guess what? A data scientist is going to quit if they don't have data to play with, if they don't have a data dictionary that tells them what the data means. So I came, week 1 in the business, can I get a data dictionary? And a very helpful DBA gave me one. It was a sort of data dictionary that you get when you scrape the SQL metadata. So I knew that we had a field called INT_490 with levels A, B, C, and D. Not really useful if you actually want to derive actionable insight from that data. I need to know what INT_490 means. I need to know what A, B, C, and D mean. And I need to understand how reliable that data is. How is that information collected? So we're very, very fortunate that when we advertised for the BA position, a colleague that had been working as a QA tester applied for the role and was very successful. He's done a phenomenal job in going through the painstaking exercise to catalog all of our data assets that we have across the group. So with the sort of BI analyst positions filled, we've got a BA in the team. I needed to bring in some external expertise from a data engineering perspective. And how do you manage bringing in disparate data sources together into a common platform? And then, as that team came together, we needed to pick a couple of suppliers. And I will say that Tableau has been a fantastic supporter champion of what we've done, and as has Cloudera. We would not have been able to move and deliver the results we've been able to deliver at the pace with which we've been able to deliver them without their support and championing over the last 2 years. So, made those bets, and the first thing that we needed to do is to start to deliver value. Very cognizant that I had the board support. But in order to maintain that board support, we needed to start to demonstrate that we were doing things. We were doing things that were meaningful, that would have an impact. So we established some really quick wins by manually importing data. We're not talking about automating the imports, but manually importing data from one data source, not many, just one, into a temporary SQL database that was hosted in the cloud that we were able to connect to Tableau. And we put in place Tableau server, which enabled us to generate some useful but not sexy operational reports of counts of things. But they were counts of things in a way that was easier to understand than the Excel spreadsheets that had been previously used, and many people were able to access it. So everyone was using the same counts, as opposed to everyone having their own version of the Excel spreadsheet, with everyone having slightly different counts of things. In our business, we learned that there's about 7 different definitions of a sold vehicle. Who knew? But when the CEO asks, well, how many cars did we sell? He's not that interested in understanding, well, did someone buy it, but has the payment not cleared? Is there some sort of dispute with the funding on that vehicle? Has it been sold, but is it still at one of our auction centers and not been collected yet? So we needed to sort of create sort of a common understanding of some of those core metrics within our business. And it was really important for us because it meant that non-technical business stakeholders could visually see that things were different. That enabled us to build momentum. And so behind the scenes, we were able to get our Hadoop cluster up and running in the cloud. work to get data flows in place. And this is sort of what we had looked like. We've got some data streaming in, we've got some data coming in batch files dropped off either hourly or daily on FTP sites into our Hadoop cluster, and then surfacing that in a couple of different ways in the business. This is a work in progress, and the team is making innovations on this almost daily. And we now have a fully automated Hadoop cluster deployment that's fully encrypted, fully secure, that can be deployed at the press of a button, which is pretty cool. But the board doesn't really care about that. The technical teams get really excited. We think it's really cool. But the board cares about that value that we're delivering. And so, again, in parallel to those pieces of work, we also collaborated with some other parts of the business for some new product ideas. We had this idea that it might be a good idea to develop a product to help dealers understand their stock and the performance of their stock. So that's an early prototype of a product that you see up on the screen. And our colleagues in our reconditioning business wanted to understand when would it make sense for one of our customers to recondition, refurbish a vehicle in preparation for the wholesale market. When would they generate a positive ROI? So again, an early prototype of the dashboard that we built for them. And what happened is that we showed these prototypes of products to clients. And generally, clients like the product concepts, and they liked the data that was underpinning those products. And so we realized that we needed to better organize ourselves to bring these solutions to market. And so we reorganized Cox Automotive Data Solutions into 6 functional areas. And I think our organizational structure is unique from what I've seen other businesses when it comes to how they mobilize data. We do not sit within an IT function. And analytics is not sort of sat within marketing, and then you've got your data engineering colleagues over here. We're all part of one team. Our data engineering team, they're the guys that are doing the plumbing. They're managing our Hadoop infrastructure, they're managing the data ingest pipelines, they're working with DBAs across the group to get the data assets out, and doing some of the transformations and processing of that data in Spark. Our data science team, which we hired after we had data for them to play with, is focused on developing various scores, metrics, and algorithms for the products that we're taking to market. Our vehicle valuations team is focused on managing and maintaining our valuations engine, which underpins our Seller Advanced product and a couple of other products which we're taking to market. This is a team that's probably unique to the automotive industry and specific to our business. Our business intelligence team are our Tableau dashboard developers. They work as consultants across the business, understanding the business needs, and go through a very iterative process to produce production-grade dashboards that our teams use to run our business. We have a product team which consists of product management and product development, which is focused on speaking with our automotive customers to understand what data would be beneficial for them to drive decision-making, what tools to surface information would be useful, and use that and develop those products. And then the product team works with our client engagement function to take those products to market. Our client team is focused on sales and service for the analytics solutions we've brought to market for the automotive industry. So in April of this year, we launched Cox Automotive Data Solutions. And our focus is to help people make smarter decisions by using data. And important for us is that data can be accessible wherever people want it. It might be in tools that help facilitate ad hoc analysis. It might be in a batch data service. We know that some of our customers, the way that they're analyzing data today is in Excel. And I love Excel. And they're taking data from across their businesses, combining it with some third-party data, and they're analyzing that data in Excel. We've seen some very complicated Excel workbooks, and what they want is more data in Excel that their analyst team can use. We then have some customers that have made the investments in their own analytics platforms, their own back office systems, and they want real-time API integrations to be able to call data as they need it. And we provide some consulting services with our customers to help them understand where, when, how they can get the best use of the information. So as I look at the journey that we've gone on, I'm going to go back to our mission, and I'm going to highlight some of the things that we've done aligned to that, because again, that reason for being, that why, drives everything that we do. So we think about help our clients make smarter and more informed decisions. We've got a product that we're in beta testing with a number of customers today to help them make better decisions around the vehicles which they purchase and the vehicles which they retail on their forecourts. Data around market prices, supply status, sales performance, to help them make those decisions to sell cars more quickly and more profitably. If we look at our internal use of data across the business, it's been really important for us to help give data to our colleagues to enable them to do their job. We've developed operational dashboards that help our auction general managers understand where there's operational issues so that corrective action can be taken. This right here highlights the vehicles that we have on site, how many are waiting to be collected, how many are waiting inspection, how many need to be delivered, etc. You can see there's the counts with very easy RAG status. So here, you can see that the general manager that would be looking at this would immediately hone in on the fact that there's an issue with the inspections. That's where the bottleneck is. Our auction general managers log in to these dashboards every single day. They cannot do their job without it. It's what runs that part of the business. It's also important to understand our customers. So we've developed some operational dashboards for our sales teams to help them understand, again, if we think about our auctions, which customers are buying which cars when, where, how frequently. What's the typical price that they're spending for the vehicles? That helps us better identify for those customers, what are the products that they're looking for, and how can we make them aware of other locations or other similar products that they'll want to buy in the future. And a most recent example is some dashboards that we've developed to help our salespeople with their account management reviews. This is designed to have a better conversation with our customers, helping them understand the return on investment that they get with the products that they purchase from us. Additionally, this standardizes that account review process for our salespeople. Previously, every salesperson would create their own PowerPoint presentation, their own account review deck, which they would go through with a customer. They would look very different from each other, so there wouldn't be any sort of consistent customer experience. And a salesperson would spend one day to pull together that deck. And on average, they would have about one account review a week. So a salesperson would spend 4 days a month pulling together a PowerPoint presentation. Now, if we have 10 salespeople, that's 40 days a month that they're spending copy-pasting stuff from Excel into PowerPoint. Now, if you're a salesperson, that's probably not what you took on the job to do. That's probably your least favorite part of your job, is fighting with Excel and PowerPoint. Actually, what you'd like to do if you're a salesperson is talk with your customers. You want to understand their problems. You want to sell them more things. That's why you're a salesperson. So we took that time that it takes to prepare an account review deck down from 1 day to 15 to 20 minutes. A salesperson logs into Tableau, they select the right filters, they pick the customer, they pick the date range that they want to be looking at, they pick the competitive set, press a couple buttons, they've got their 20-page deck created, they have to do the screen grabs, drop them into PowerPoint, and the job is done. So that means what used to be 40 man days a month is down to 2 man days a month. That's almost 2 FTE that we've now saved. And when we think about saving that, that's not about making redundancies. That's about the fact that they can now spend that much more time with our customers, understanding their problems, understanding their challenges. So that for us has been a really big win that we've had lately. The third part of our mission is to be the authoritative source of vehicle market insight. And what we've done there is started to regularly publish market commentary on our blog, which you see up on the screen. A couple things there. We've talked about the move from physical to digital auctions. We've done some analysis around diesel versus petrol, which is a hot topic in the automotive industry. And we've also looked at how engine sizes, et cetera, have changed over time, and fuel efficiency as well. So check us out there, and that's part of what we're doing to become that authoritative source of vehicle market insight. So where do you start if you're looking at this? And I want to remind you that the journey that we've gone on started 2 years ago. So we've been able to make pretty significant progress pretty quickly. And the important thing is to understand the decision that you're trying to inform. Everything that we've done has been driven by a business need. It's not an IT project. We're not doing cool stuff with data because our data scientists get really, really excited about new different types of machine learning algorithms. We're focused on the problem that we're trying to solve. Whether that's how can we make our sales reviews more efficient, or how can my auction general manager understand where the biggest problems are when he comes in at 8 in the morning. When you understand the decision that you're trying to inform, you then need to get and analyze the data. You need to take that time to think about what's the data that will actually make a difference to that decision. Because I think there's lots of decisions that businesses make where they say, well, I want to see this data, I want to see that data, but the decision maker's already made up their mind. So that data is not actually going to change anything. But you get the data, you analyze the data, and then it's important to validate the results of that analysis with your own experience. Again, if you're talking about new data sets that you're bringing into an organization, I think that a lot of you in the room know that there's all sorts of weird things that happen in the data. We've discovered that there were cars that were built in the 1800s in our data. Cars were not built in the 1800s. So, there's those sorts of things those anomalies, which you need to detect, identify, and if you don't spend the time to do that, if you don't validate the results of the data and really probe into any outliers, you're going to end up showing some great results that a business leader is going to be like, yeah, no, that's not right. I don't trust this. I don't trust the data. And you end up discrediting yourself. So it's really important to validate the results with your own experience and ideally with the results of your, with the experience of your business colleagues. And then you use that to make a better decision. So I hope that this has been useful. I'm happy to take any questions either now or online. If you're interested in connecting, my Twitter details, my LinkedIn profile's up there. And thank you for your time today. Any questions? There's one. I think they're coming around with a mic.
Hi. The journey that you're describing is exactly the journey that our company is going through. I wondered how you encouraged people to move away from Excel and from their very repetitive clicky work into using these new solutions that you're offering.
I think it's been an educational process for us. So the first thing that we were able to do is we identified, from an analyst perspective, the analysts had been frustrated that they were running out of rows in Excel. So it was like, guess what? Use Tableau. You don't have the row limit. How cool is that? And so they were really, really easy to get on board. And then some of the business leaders, when we were able to show them information that was visualized, as opposed to rows and rows of Excel, so that they don't need to have their own Excel file where they're using pivot tables, etc. They're like, wow, this is really powerful. I didn't know X, and so they were able to sort of see that visually, and so that sort of at the analyst level, here's tools to make your life easier. At that top level, this is how things are visualized. And we were also then able, sort of in that intermediate level, so take some of the salespeople, for example, we were able to identify a couple people that always seem to be asking us for data. We're like, oh, these people are pretty data hungry. Let's turn them into champions for what we're doing. Let's really work with them as we're developing dashboards. Let's go through that iterative process with them, make sure it works for their needs. Then they're happy about it. Their life is easier. The salespeople can spend their time selling and not fighting with Excel, PowerPoint, and then they tell their colleagues. And then that sort of helps to roll things out. So it's sort of almost get the analysts on board with better tools, get the board on board because they can actually see things, and then get that intermediate level by identifying some champions that can help sort of spread the word. It looks like we've got time for one more question.
Hi, I'm Jing Li. I'm from GK Aerospace. We are the super tier 1 supplier to Boeing or Airbus, the aircraft OEMs. So we are just starting to take the journey to go data-driven manufacturing. Mm-hmm. So when you started your journey, did you have any problem with your data amount? So how many data do you need to have to start your first analytics, and how did you have any trouble with that?
So we looked across the business and identified that our core, so the most valuable data set from an operational perspective and as well as ease of access was the data that underpinned our back office green screen legacy auction system. And there were some really clear business use cases associated with that. So we just got an extract that we ran over the weekend in the wee hours to then sort of, if you will, do a proof of concept of this is what we can do. Now this isn't live up-to-date data, but this is what it could look like. So we just started with that one data set, and then as we sort of built that out into production scale, we squeezed that data set as much as we possibly could. Because there's a lot of work in getting different types of data, and we wanted to make sure that we were sort of harvesting that one asset as best we possibly could before we started focusing on all the other assets that we could bring in. I think we're out of time. If you have more questions, feel free to connect with me online. Thank you.